We have got a really stacked Tellius banner and also a game changer skill in Breath of Life 4. So this is going to be my unit review and builds guide for Attuned Micaiah, Rearmed Sothe, Edward, Leonardo, and Jarod. So let us begin with the star of the banner in Attuned Micaiah, who's a really over-tuned supportive nuke, and part of the reason is her preferred weapon, Silver of Dawn. So this has got minus and special cooldown built in, and it also has the trademarked effective damage against armors and cavaliers, and this allows her to easily do a lot of damage to many of the far saviors with already the ridiculous amount of debuffs that she can do. And she has got the Omni Guidance 4 built in, which means that it is kind of similar in practice with legendary Alencia's Slotsy skill and also Ash's Slotsy skill. So any kind of unit can make use out of the skill and get that 2-space warping, which is going to be really good for the role compression in something like Summoner Duels. And this also makes her as a really good threat to be deployed in Aether Raids defense. And after the Sword of Turn skills have triggered on the enemy phase, to herself and the allies in 2 spaces, she heals up 10 HP and she also converts any kind of penalties into bonuses. So this is the real-time harsh command without making use of your own action. And this is a huge thing because debuffs are really common nowadays with the ploy skills, the sabotage skills, and so many units who can debuff you. She not only converts the penalties into buffs, but she can also neutralize the first 2 penalty status effects on herself and the allies in 2 spaces. Now, the English description does have a mistranslation, and it might lead you to believe that she only does that for herself, but no, she actually does that for any kind of ally in 2 spaces. So that is just absolutely amazing, and if you have played any kind of competitive Fae with Freyr being present, you know how strong this kind of effect is. Now, Micaiah's cleansing is going to be limited to only the 2 negative status effects, and the way it's decided is with this kind of priority list. So if you have got Panic, that is always going to be getting cleansed, and so is going to be Exposure, but something like the ending action of Dual Leon is going to be at the very last of the priority. So you can basically click the eye icon on your unit and see which kind of debuffs that you've got, and sort of the enemy phase, she's going to be cleansing the first 2 status effects that you've got there. So this can be a really big thing because in Summoner Duels this does work out perfectly fine, and you can use this with your teams that have +1 movement. So you can try and cleanse the stalled status, for example, which is really common with Duo Thor. So that is going to be definitely a thing that you can make use of with your extra movement cavalry units. Hortensia and Duo Female Robin are also really common in Summoner Duels, and Hush Spectrum being that high on the priority list is definitely pretty amazing. So her support just starts with her weapon and goes even further with her exclusive slot B skill. But back to her weapon, she can also debuff the foe for -X for attack and resistance, and this is going to be decided by 20% of her own resistance at start of combat. So more visible resistance is going to be leading to more debuffs, and then she can also ignore any kind of foe's bonuses to their attack and resistance. And then finally, she gets true damage based on number of allies present in 3 rows or 3 columns multiplied by 5, and this can go up to max 15. Unfortunately, this is not going to be getting added to any kind of AoE special because Micaiah can even AoE nuke. She's just that versatile. So this weapon does a lot of things for supporting your teammates by giving you the healing, the Omni Guidance, and also by getting rid of the penalties and making them into the buffs so that you don't really have to use Harsh Command Plus with your units. And it also cleanses 2 penalty status effects. So this weapon is just stacked with the support. And she also has her exclusive slot B skill in Yoon's Protection. So this is going to be acting as an Omni Chill skill. So it is going to be checking for the highest for each stat on the enemy team, and then it is going to be spreading to the foes in 2 spaces of the target. So the splash debuff is really good, and then she also inflicts them with the exposure status and the discord status. So she gets even more true damage, and the discord status is going to be good for getting that debuff in the combat. She also debuffs the foes in the combat depending on the highest total debuffs among the target and foes within 2 spaces of the target. So this is another mistranslation in the English description, and it is just ridiculous the amount of attack and resistance debuffs that she can get on the enemy. I mean, you've already seen that in the trailer, so it can easily cross into the 50s with the amount of debuffs that she has got, and she also gets 50% damage reduction piercing in the combat. So this allows her to easily just nuke really hard with her base 47 attack and with her effective damage and insane resistance debuffs. So Yoon's protection is going to be adding on to the support that she can provide to your team with the debuffs, and also it makes Micaiah into a really scary unit in the combat, and it also makes her really bulky with that base 30 defense and base 46 resistance. And because this already debuffs the enemies and also inflicts them with the exposure status, a lot of the times you don't really need to run a ploy skill in her slot C, and she already has the Omni Guidance 4 in her weapon, so she doesn't even have to run Soaring Guidance like a lot of the flying units. So this allows her to optimize the support even more by running attack resistance Crux, and because she's an attuned unit, she does come with Fortress Echo, which is going to be giving you Canto remaining movement, and bare minimum this is going to be giving you Canto 1. So even if you warp or just use all of your movement, you're going to be getting Canto 1, and you can also get +3 true damage in the combat, including with the AoE specials. So Fortress Echo is a really versatile attune skill, which any kind of ranged flyer or ranged cavalier would want to run, especially if they're running something else in their slot B. So Rearmed Plumeria can run this attune skill, and she comes with Wings of Mercy 4. So because we're not using Firestorm Dance, you're going to be missing out on Canto 1, and she can still get that with this attune skill. You can use many ranged cavalry nukes and ranged flyers with Flared Sparrow and Occultist Strike combo, and if they're going to be running that combo, then they're not going to be having space to run Fortress, so that could be run as the attune skill. And a lot of the healers are just going to be running Poetic Justice or any other healer skill in their slot B. So this could be run on so many units that have something else in their slot B, and you pretty much get an idea with these examples. Attuned Micaiah also has Fire Flood Boost 3, which could be used for the inheritance, but it does give her the guard effect and also some extra bulk. So she can be deceptively tanky because of all of the attack debuffs that she can do. And attack resistance Crux is another support skill that she can run, and this can give you the guaranteed follow-up attack on many of your units. And nowadays with the weapon refines we have seen, a lot of units don't really have guaranteed follow-up attack, so there it could be helpful. And she also gets the debuffs, but you will see that there is a much better supportive skill that she can run if you have the fodder. So overall, Attuned Micaiah is easily one of the best supportive nukes in the entire game, if not the best one, because the roll compression that she has got is just insane. She does so many things for your team. She cleanses the penalties and makes them into buffs. She also cleanses to negative status effects. She gives you the healing, she has the Omni Guidance, and she also gives you a lot of debuffs, and she herself is incredible in the combat. So she's going to be really useful in Aether Raids offense and also in Aether Raids defense because of how annoying she can be. And in Summoner Duels, any kind of Omni Guidance unit is always going to be helpful, and she can even function with Brave Soren and act as a far savior because of how ridiculously bulky she can be. And then she can provide you with the utility and all of that support, and that is all really amazing. And the amount of attack and resistance debuff that she can get on the enemies is just downright absurd. So overall, she is a complete package and an incredible support unit that you can spark even if you're a free-to-play player. For building a Micaiah on a budget, you can still keep her assist. It could be helpful because of the healing, but a lot of times she's just going to be doing her thing with her preferred weapon. So you could just run Glimmer or Iceberg as her special, and you can run Attack Resistance Catch as the Sacred Seal. You can also try and run Breath of Life 4 in her slot C, and even though she doesn't have the highest defense, this is more for the support for your teammates. So this is definitely an incredible support skill that you can run, which not a lot of flyers can do because they would have to run Soaring Guidance or some kind of other skill, and they wouldn't have as much roll compression like Micaiah. And Glimmer could be run with Emblem Ike so that you can get some unpierceable damage reduction, and if you're using her with Brave Soren, then like I said, she could act as a far savior. And you could also run her with Crystalline Water, so this way you can have more visible attack and can run her with an AoE build. Unfortunately, her true damage from her weapon doesn't get added into the Blazing Wind, but at least you get that 3 true damage out of the Fortress skill. So by providing her 1 cooldown support from any kind of other ally, she can easily pre-charge an AoE special and hit incredibly hard with the AoE special. And you can also run her with Flared Mirror if you want to have some kind of pre-combat damage yourself, and this way you can set up the flame terrain and then retreat with the Fortress skill. And Hardy Bearing could definitely help you in the Emblem Ike matchup, and Micaiah can definitely take on Emblem Ike with the amount of attack debuffs that she can get. So again, you can have that Breath of Life 4 support, which is going to be incredible, and it does help her as well with the survival. Edward is a sword infantry unit with Caldebolg as his preferred weapon. This gives him minus on special cooldown, making godlike reflexes as a 2 cooldown special, and then in the combat he can get up to 14 to all of his stats depending on 25% of foe's attack at start of combat. He also gets Null Guard with this weapon and also 50% damage reduction piercing, which does help against the modern nukes, and he also gets special cooldown -1 jump before the foe's first attack, and this can help you loop godlike reflexes, and he also gets flat damage reduction. He gets 16 flat damage reduction if foe's special triggers, and if not, then he's going to be getting 8 flat damage reduction. So any kind of flat damage reduction is good because it is going to be unpierceable in nature, at least at the moment of making this video. So it could be stacked up with godlike reflexes and its unpierceable damage reduction, and then Emblem Ike, and if you invest even more, then Lagu's Friend also comes in. So all of this flat damage reduction does help him become a pretty nice sword infantry unit. And then finally, he also has damage reflection on foe's first attack, and it's going to be resetting at the end of combat, but basically the more damage that he reduces, the more damage he can do on his next attack, and this way he can hit really hard with all of the damage reduction that he has got. He also has 43 base attack and 46 base speed, and a pretty high defense at base 43, so if you're going to be running Lagu's Friend on him, then he can get pretty good flat damage reduction based on that defense. He does come with an amazing and a game changer skill in Breath of Life 4, and this skill is completely changed in its tier 4 version, and it is going to be helping you combat the pre-combat damage, and it is pretty much the best skill that you can run on a tank. So for the unit and the allies in 2 spaces, at start of combat you're going to be restoring X amount of HP, and this is going to be triggering after the pre-combat damage. So there are 2 ways that you're going to be able to get the healing. The first way is the defense check in the combat. So if you've got more defense than the foe, then you're going to be getting 20% of your max HP as the healing, added with the difference in defense between you and your foe times 4. So this allows you to get even more healing if you have a good defense, and if you don't, then you're still going to be getting 20% of your max HP as the healing. And the max cap of the healing is going to be max 40% of your max HP, and then it is also going to be adding any kind of damage dealt as the combat begins. So pretty much the pre-combat damage that units like Dual Leon can get. So this is going to be there to counter him, and what an overtuned counter this is, because in practice you can heal up so much HP that you can even survive a lot of the AoE nukes, and it also works against them. So this way you're able to survive with many of your tanks, especially the tanks which have flat damage reduction. And if that was not enough, then both the unit and the allies in 2 spaces get +4 defense in the combat, and you also reduce the effect of the deep wound status by 50%. So this is an insanely good skill for so many of the tanks, and a lot of people are going to be giving this skill to Attuned Micaiah. I did show that before, and the main reason is going to be duplicating that fodder for so many of your tanks. And obviously the best user of this is going to be Emblem Ike, the best Omni tank in the game, and he has the answer to the pre-combat damage and also the AoE specials which can annoy him. But Breath of Life 4 is insane for its healing and also for combating the Fatal Smoke effects and the Fatal Smoke nukes. So this is going to be his best slotsy skill, but you're going to be missing out on Cancer Control for something like Summer Duels, and also Fatal Smoke 4 for getting past those non-special miracle effects. But Breath of Life 4 is definitely worth it in the slotsy. Nurgle is also another support unit that you can run this Breath of Life skill on, and he already gives you the healing with his Essence Drain. So this is going to be giving you even more healing, which is just absurd. And you can also use this on many units that already have the Deep Wounds mitigation, and this is going to be stacking multiplicatively. So you're going to be ignoring the effects of Deep Wounds by 75%, which is definitely quite a lot for someone like young Lissa. So that could be done, even though it does say that the healing doesn't stack. It is true in that aspect, but you can stack up the Deep Wounds mitigation, and it works really well with these kinds of units. You can also run this on a high defense tank like Brave Dimitri, and he can definitely make a comeback with Lagu's Friend, and he's gonna be probably there in the Hall of Form survival poll. So this is a build that you can try and get on him, because now with Lagu's Friend he has the damage reduction piercing by running Bonfire, and he also gets a lot more flat damage reduction, and Breath of Life takes care of any kind of pre-combat damage. You also have miracle units like Ascended Celica who really like getting this Slotsy skill because they can have that miracle effect a lot more consistently. And speaking of miracle, we also have Legendary Meleer, whose main thing is having that miracle with the Slotty skill. So this does help him quite a lot in making sure that he's not chipped to 1 HP and then he's not able to trigger his miracle. And you can also run this on many of the support units. So Aether is a pretty popular Astromythic unit that people have invested into, and by running the Ruse 4 skill, she can provide you even more support. And now she can run Breath of Life 4, so that is going to be available for any kind of tank. But keep in mind that the feud effect or the feud status is going to be bypassing the Breath of Life support that you're going to be giving with a unit like this. So that's why an Astromythic with this kind of support is a lot better compared to a Light Mythic, because Embla is going to be there with the feud status. And you can also run this on a supportive nuke like Legendary Male Pilot, and after his Weapon Refinement Remix, he doesn't really need to run Time Pulse in his Slotsy, so he can instead double down on providing that support with Breath of Life 4, and this could be helpful in Arena. And then, Miracle is again back here with Fallen Maria, and even though she doesn't have the highest defense herself, it is still going to be taking the defense of the tank ally that is going to be in the combat, so she's mainly there for the support and not to use Breath of Life 4 for herself. There are just so many units and so many tanks that could just run Breath of Life 4 that if I go over each of them, I would be here all day. But this could definitely give you an idea on which units you can run Breath of Life 4 on. Back to Edward, so even though he's going to be getting foddered mainly for Breath of Life 4, he's not a half bad unit himself. He does have the things that you need as an Omni tank with the flat damage reduction, which he can stack up with, Lagu's friend, and he has that defense for making good use out of it if you're a big Edward fan. If you don't want to fodder off the single copy of God, then Speed Defense Form can be a decent budget skill that he can run for his Slotty, and he could function for tanking the things in limited battles and also in Arena Assault. But if you can give some expensive fodder from Divine Codes, then Attack Speed Finish 4 is going to be there as a Slotty skill that he can run. And with Emblem Ike, he's able to have more unpierceable damage reduction, which is always welcome as an Omni tank. He already has a lot of healing with Breath of Life 4, and then he's going to be getting even more healing in the combat with the finish skill. And it also stacks up the true damage that he can get out of his damage reflection. You could also use him with Lagu's friend 4, so that is going to be the ultimate endgame skill for him because he does have that defense for making use of the flat damage reduction. And even though he does a 50% damage reduction piercing, now with Lagu's friend you've got the full damage reduction piercing, so for stacking up the unpierceable damage reduction, it is going to be a very important skill. And distant bonus doubler could be run so that you can stack up even more stats, and you can just run bonus doubler as the Sacred Seal as well. For stacking up even more flat damage reduction, you can try and run Attack Speed XL, which is going to be giving you the flat damage reduction in the enemy phase on the enemy specials. So this does help you, so it can help you against many of the cavalry nukes that are going to be fulfilling the criteria of the XL skill and can give you more flat damage reduction. But ultimately this is going to be a crazy expensive skill that only the biggest Edward fans are going to be running him with. The Goose Friend is definitely the best slot B skill that you can run on him, even though Godlike Reflexes is a 2 cooldown special. The thing is that there's no special cooldown requirement for defensive specials with Lagu's friend, so Godlike Reflexes works perfectly fine for Edward at this kind of insane investment. Rearmed Sothe is a colorless dagger infantry unit with Arcane Tempest as the arcane weapon. I've made a full video going over the best units to give this weapon to and the best builds that you can run on them, but this weapon basically gives you Menace and special cooldown, and it does have Time Pulse 3 built in, so you're able to pre-charge Bane, his special, with this Time Pulse, and then in the combat you're able to get max up to 14 to all of your stats. You also get 30% damage reduction from foes' first attacks, including the brave hits, but this is the pierceable damage reduction, and if you are faster than the opponent, then you get the full null follow-up effect. He also comes with Attack Speed Pledge, which is going to be helping him trigger Bane again in that single round of combat, and if you're going to be using him for his skills, then this is going to be making for an amazing skill to inherit on so many units who either want to trigger their special to loop something like Godlike Reflexes, or they just want to trigger their specials on the retaliation. So an amazing slotsy skill, and he also comes with Bane as his exclusive special So this is a 2 cooldown special that becomes 1 cooldown with Arcane Tempest that then he pre-charges with the Time Pulse effect in the weapon. And this is going to be giving you 100% damage reduction piercing when the special triggers, so it's kind of like a mini lethality in a way with that kind of damage reduction piercing. And if the foe will be alive, then it sets Sothe's damage based on foe's HP -1 before taking foe's flat or true damage reduction into the account. So you already pierce through the damage reduction, but the flat and true damage reduction is going to be a thing that is not going to be counted towards. So that way the enemy can even survive with more HP than 1 if they have a lot of unpierceable damage reduction. And a lot of the modern tanks are going to be having that unpierceable damage reduction. So it is something to note that you're not always going to be setting the foe at 1 HP when you trigger Bane. Still, Bane does help you have your damage output increased in many scenarios, and if unit or foe special is ready or triggered before or during the combat, then you get that unpierceable 30% damage reduction from foe's next attack. So this does help ensure that Sothe can double or even trigger his Potent Disarm Potent Follow-Up attack. Speaking of that, he does have Potent Disarm as his slot B skill, so this is basically Disarm Trap 4, but giving you the Potent Follow-Up attack, so it can be helpful to many of the dagger units to get that Potent Follow-Up attack, which is going to be having that speed check basically. So the description is a lot more simplified than the game leads you to believe. So this allows Sothe to get 3 attacks in, which does help, but it's definitely not the best slot B skill that many of the dagger units can run. But for Sothe, he doesn't really need to run null follow-up in his slot B, and he already gets the damage reduction piercing, so he can definitely try and run this skill. And overall, Sothe is going to be functioning as a pretty decent infantry dagger unit, but when comparing to the other things in this banner, like Attuned Micaiah and Breath of Life 4, he definitely seems a lot more tame. So he does have pretty good super boons with attack super boon and speed super boon at base 47. And if you're going to be building him up, then you can simply give him reposition. But if you're going to be giving him a bit more expensive skill, then he can run Assassin Strike. And this way he can also duplicate the fodder. So you can just make use of both of the boons if you're going to be giving him a Floret. And you can also make use of Desperation as your slot B skill because you get that null follow-up from Arcane Tempest. And Bane is already going to be pre-charged, and even if you run into some kind of scowl enemy, you're still going to be triggering Bane on your double. So Desperation 4 can also be an option that you can run with an Oath 4 skill, so that way you can easily trigger its effect even at full HP. Leonardo is the 4-star focus and the D mode of this banner, and he comes with an inhittable bow in Doubler Bow Plus. So this is similar to Pumpkin Stem Plus, which we have seen before. So it gives you the visible attack and resistance buff, and also to the allies in 2 spaces. So it does have a bit of a supportive aspect, and it does have bonus Doubler 4 built in. So not the worst inhittable bow, but there are definitely better weapons that you could run on him if you're going to be investing in him. And he also has attack resistance finish 3 at 5-star, which is a huge thing because now we're getting the finish kills in the normal summon pool on these D mode units. And I'm going to be waiting for that attack speed finish 3 fodder. When it comes to his stats, he does have base 44 attack, which does have a super boon. And compared to the other archers, he's going to be a bit less fast. So he's got base 50 speed at the max investment. And comparing him to Dorothy or Groom Alchrist, you can see that he's going to be lacking a bit in the offensive aspect. But he makes up for that by having a bit more resistance, so he can definitely use the ploy skills, which other archers cannot. And the archers that are able to make use of the ploy skills like Spring Linhardt, they're not going to be as fast as Leonardo at the bare minimum. So if you're going to be building him up on a budget, then you can give him defense tactics so that he can give you another visible buff, and that goes really well with the supportive aspect of Doubler Bow Plus. But if you're going to be investing a bit more into him, then you can still have Doubler Bow Plus, but you can run attack speed finish and physical null follow-up from the divine codes. And because his resistance is good enough, you can try and make use of this with the Ascended Asset, and by also making use of it with the Squad A Sacred Seal. Unfortunately, because he also wants to stack up speed, you're going to be spreading yourself a bit thin because you can only run resistance stacking skills while still wanting a bit more speed. So this is the way of using him at max investment, and if you don't really have any other weapon, then this can still work with Emblem Marth making Deadeye into a 2 cooldown special. But if you do have the fodder, then he can definitely make use of Arcane Darkbow and run Flash Barrow from Rearmed Alchrist, and you can also run Speed Defense Tempo 4, so that he can trigger Deadeye on your double, and attack speed Oath 4 does work as an offensive slotsy skill if you're not going to be running a ploy skill. And for making use of the ploy skill, you're definitely going to be needing to invest a bit more into his resistance like I've shown you with the previous build. And you can also use him with Golden Eel Bow Plus, and Resistance Refined can help you trigger the ploy skills a lot better, so it could be run. And attack speed ploy is definitely the best ploy skill that he can run, but if we get speed defense ploy, then that could also be an option that he can run. So by running the attack Oath Echo skill, you're able to get the warping, so that way you're able to instantly fire off Deadeyes with Golden Eel Bow Plus, and that is definitely going to be an option that he can run on Leonardo. And because we're going to be piercing through the damage reduction, you can run Assassin Strike as the slot B skill. If you don't want to run Flash Barrow, and if you want to optimize your Arcane Darkbow build a bit more, then you can run Attack Speed Pledge and run Speed Defense Tempo, and you can also get the true damage out of the finish skill, which is going to be mattering in getting the KOs. So this is definitely a build that you can run at max investment. Jarod is a Lance Infantry unit, and he's the grail option from this patch as a Grand Hero Battle unit. He comes with the budget Arcane Lewin and Null Spear Plus, which is going to be giving you that Null follow-up and +5 true damage and also the offenses. So it's a decent weapon, but obviously at max investment he can run Arcane Lewin, and then he does have Pulse Smoke 3 at 5-star, which makes him a pretty unique grail fodder unit because we never really had any kind of free-to-play unit with Pulse Smoke. So this can help you against the pre-charged specials and can also help you in Rooker Siege, and maybe whenever the tier 4 version of this drops, this is going to be good as the bridge fodder. When it comes to the stats, he's going to be competing with Ninja Saizo and Summer Norn, and he has got 5 more attack than Ninja Saizo, but he doesn't really have as much defense, and that does matter because at max investment you're going to be using Lagoose Friend, and the higher defense of Ninja Saizo is going to be a lot more useful. But Jarod is going to be almost as much bulky as Summer Norn, and he is going to be having more offenses than her, so that can work out for him, but I kind of prefer the stat spread of Ninja Saizo over Jarod. If you're going to be building him up on a budget, then Guard can be a good slot B skill in combination with his Pulse Smoke, and you can try and run Speed Defense Form as a budget skill, but at higher investment, Arcane Lewin is going to be the better weapon for that full null follow-up and its other effects, and you can try and get attack speed finish and buffer from the Divine Codes, and this way you're able to pre-charge Godlike Reflexes and then loop it with attack speed pledge and its special charges. And we do have attack speed pledge on this very banner, so that could be a thing that you could do at mid investment, and you could run him with distant counter melee because he's going to be having enough bulk to easily take on a lot of the ranged threats. But at max investment, the Goose Friend is going to be the best slot B skill that you can run on him, and that way you eliminate the need of a pledge skill in the slot C because you're going to be getting that special jumping, so you're easily able to loop Godlike Reflexes, and you get a lot more unpierceable damage reduction with Emblem Ike. And because he doesn't really have as much defense as Ninja Saizo, you kind of have to use distant bonus doubler so that he can stack up more defense along with the bonus doubler Sacred Seal. I want to thank all of my members for their constant support, and you can click the link on your screen right now to check out my breakdown of the weapon refines of this month, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Leonardo's preferred weapon. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.